This episode of the Pretty Happy Podcast is brought to you by our website, prettyhappy.place. Please visit our website to support the show. On this week's episode of the Pretty Happy Podcast, we discuss equipment studs and duds we've been using to help our daughter with Rett.
But first, we talk about two big funding announcements for Rett syndrome research.
All that and more on today's episode. Today is Monday, March 6th. Let's start the show. Welcome to the Pretty Happy Podcast. My name is Sam.
And I'm Sarah, and we're the parents of Zoe, a child with Rett syndrome.
We're so excited to have you back for another wonderful episode of the Pretty Happy Podcast. We have some great stuff to talk with you about today. But before we get into that, Sarah, you comfy and cozy?
I am.
I was teasing her just a bit ago about how she looks like a grandma in her shawl. It's not actually a shawl.
It's a blanket.
No, but
I'm wrapped up in a blanket.
But the way you're wearing it is very shawl-like. So
around me like you do with a blanket?
Well, and then you're shuffling about. I think it's kind of the whole demeanor. You know, you're giving off real grandma vibes. And not that it's a bad thing.
I mean, sometimes I feel like I could maybe be a grandma.
You know, I've noticed, did I tell you that in the mornings I'm having to walk funny because my ankles need time to wake up?
Yes, you should tell me that.
Mainly my Achilles heel needs a little bit of warming up before I can actually start bending it. So I have to penguin walk to the stairs. And in fact, the stairs are probably the worst part.
Well, I feel like it goes along great with all of my creaky hips popping and knees popping and all of my joints that are super loud, and you always think I've just broken something.
Yeah. Well, I guess we go hand in hand. Our bodies are just falling apart.
That doesn't feel right.
Well, it is. It is. On that very happy note, let's get into our top 3 stories for the day, beginning with number 1. A new article gives a great explanation of trofinetide that even I can understand. I'll be honest, I've had a hard time understanding all of these drugs and what they do, most recently Neurogene and their exact technology, which is a very exact definition. But this article that recently came out really gives an awesome explanation of how trofinetide is working, at least as far as the most recent drug trials that occurred in 2019. So, to begin with, I didn't realize that trofinetide actually began in 1999, meaning that it was developed in 1999.
I did not know that.
Me neither. It began as a drug to help treat traumatic brain injuries, but due to it needing to be synthesized in very specific conditions, at certain times, at certain temperatures, and then it had to be delivered in a specific amount of time. And even after all of that, once it had been synthesized perfectly, its reactions were capricious. It just ended up being put on a shelf until 2002, when it was discovered that the drug had, quote, clear neuroprotective effects. I don't know exactly what neuroprotective effects are.
I don't either.
But my basic English from high school would tell me to break down the word neurology, brain, okay, cool, protective, ooh, like a defense, protects brain. I don't know if that's exactly what it is. Please don't quote that to me or quote that back to anybody, because that may be completely wrong. But it does sound positive, doesn't it, Sarah?
It does. It sounds very positive.
So anyways, but that's how it got its start on the Rett syndrome trail. And while the history of trofinetide is super interesting, that's not why I like this article. Here is their explanation from the article of the phase 3 trial from trofinetide in 2019, I think it was. And it's going to include the results. So here we go. Acadia initiated the phase 3 trial of trofinetide in 2019, enrolling 187 girls and women with Rett syndrome between the ages of 5 and 20. The 12-week randomized double-blind study had 2 primary endpoints. The first, measured by the Rett Syndrome Behavior Questionnaire, also known as RSBQ, which is administered by caregivers, and the second by the Clinical Global Impression Scale Improvement, CGI. I don't know why I had a lot harder time with that second one than I did the first one.
Not sure either.
And that's really not that big of words, but apparently my brain can't handle it. So, continuing with the quote, the CGII is a survey conducted by clinicians. The lower the RSBQ score, the less prominent the person's Rett-related traits. In the phase 3 trial, RSBQ scores in the trofinetide group fell from baseline by 5.1 points, which at face value, that's like, okay, what does that really even mean? You know, what's this measure? How does that impact us if Zoe ends up getting trofinetide? Well, continuing, the article says in the placebo group, the drop was just 1.7 points. So that comparison, for whatever reason, the way this article put it, made a lot more sense to me than anything else.
I feel like when you compare it to that, it's like, oh, there was a big difference between I don't know what the difference was, but there was a difference.
Yep. Yeah. There definitely was a difference. So anyways, that's some good news there. Obviously, it doesn't specifically tell us what exactly was improved, but it sounds like this Rett syndrome behavior questionnaire was rather all-encompassing, and it covered a lot of topics. So that probably means that there were a lot of things that improved. Even if it was just slightly, it was enough to make a difference in the score. So that's really great news. And head on over to the article. Like I said, it was really well written. I enjoyed reading this article. I don't always enjoy reading articles about drugs and such, but this one, the way that they were sharing the story and the history of trofinetide, it's very fascinating. So click the link in the show notes of this episode and head on over there and read that. Number 2, one of the largest Chinese news outlets shares Rett family stories. And while the stories of the 2 families in the articles are very interesting and most certainly relatable, what I found very interesting is the difference in supports between the United States and China. And here's what I found so interesting. The first case of Rett syndrome in the United States was identified in the early 80s. And then in China, it was the late 80s. Okay, so not a huge difference there,
No.
but a little bit. Fairly similar, though. The first serious Rett research around or in the United States, that began in the early 80s, kind of around the same time that it was identified for the first time. And in China, it was the early 90s. Okay, still fairly similar.
Yeah.
And obviously, these are just 2 markers that I've picked out. And so this is obviously skewing my own perspective and what I'm sharing here, but I really couldn't find much more because currently the United States has 18 Rett clinics. If you had to guess, Sarah, how many Rett clinics would be in China, which, mind you, China has a population of over 1 billion.
Yeah. I don't know, like 20?
None.
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 What?
Big fat 0. Yes. Exactly. that I was very confused reading this article at how it's possible in a country of 8 billion people, they don't have a Rett clinic. Because I actually was able to find a study that was published in 2011, which obviously more than a decade old, and there's a lot of information that I'm sure has been updated since then. But in 2011, this study discussed the barriers to receiving a Rett syndrome diagnosis. At that time, there were 74 known families of individuals with Rett, and yet, at that time, it was estimated that 1,000 girls were born with Rett syndrome every year.
That's incredible.
Yeah. That is an astonishing delta. It is
That's crazy.
absolutely crazy. And if you go and read the article, which it is a fantastic read, it's very interesting. It talks about the struggles of not only receiving a diagnosis for Rett syndrome, but just finding any information about it. It's just not there, unfortunately. So the great news is that since this article was published in one of the largest Chinese news outlets, we can hope that more families will begin to receive help, either in the way of receiving a diagnosis or just getting access to more information and connecting with others. I do want to put one little asterisk on there, and that is the website is part of the Chinese propaganda department. So just keep that in mind if you choose to go to that website. There may be some other stuff on there that is heavily slanted towards the Chinese Communist Party. So, but this one, it seemed like it was just a personal piece. You know, it was just sharing stories, and it didn't really necessarily talk about like the great achievements in research for Rett syndrome. It was just, seemed like they were just really stating the facts of what was going on. So,
Interesting.
anyways, just be aware of that. And number 3, a couple of important donations were made to Rett research organizations.
Woohoo!
Let's talk about how they are helping. So the first one, we do know the amount, $500,000. It was given to the Rett Syndrome Research Trust, and it was earmarked specifically to be given to a biotech company that is creating a device called the Emerald. Sounds like something from The Wizard of Oz.
I've heard about this.
Have
It's
you?
really cool.
I am very skeptical of it.
Okay, well,
Let's talk
I
about
obviously don't know if the thing works, but
Exactly. I think it's very fascinating. It could be really awesome if it were to actually work. But let's talk about what it is. The Emerald is a biosensor, and specifically, it is not attached to you as the patient. It just sits in the room, and it emits these low voltage radio frequencies, and based off of what it gets back, what it's about, those radio frequencies bounce off of and how they bounce back to the Emerald biosensor, the artificial intelligence within it will spit out some additional information about what is going on with the patient in the room. So why am I skeptical about it? Because it sounds like it belongs in the Terminator. Something like that.
it does sound like something from a sci-fi,
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm scanning the room now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it does sound like that. But if they could make something like that work, I think that would be really, really cool,
Mm-hmm.
especially for individuals who really need non-invasive monitoring,
Mm-hmm.
to just have that in the room.
Yeah.
And it watches for breathing and seizures and, that all of that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, initially it was created with Alzheimer patients and Parkinson's patients in mind. And so it's essentially Rett Syndrome Research Trust is hoping to be able to piggyback and be able to use it to help Rett individuals as well.
There's a lot of similarities between, some of the things that happen with all of the conditions.
Yeah, most certainly. So, like I said, I am personally skeptical because it just sounds so far out there, and that's coming from the guy who loves techie stuff. So I hope it works.
I think you're just being pessimistic today.
Yeah, a little bit. So hopefully that's good. What was really cool about this donation is it came from a woman by the name of Alba Toll, and she is actually the wife of a movie producer, and her husband, the movie producer, he actually was an executive producer on the, is it already 2 years old, 2021? Yeah, the movie Dune. He was an executive producer on that, so it came from their family foundation. Alba had actually a friend whose child was diagnosed with Rett syndrome, and it hit her really hard. So to anybody who says making connections doesn't make a difference, it does. It absolutely does. And the second donation that was made was specifically for males with Rett. The parents of Barrett Otis, Rick and Alyssa, they made a donation to the International Rett Syndrome Foundation, and they established a fund in honor of their two-year-old son, Barrett. And the intentions of this fund are exactly as it is named, the Barrett Otis Research Fund for Males with Rett. I think that tells you exactly what this fund is for.
Yep, there's no question there.
Yep. And so it's really great. They talk about in the article that was posted to rettsyndrome.org their diagnosis process and the amount of misinformation that is out there specifically regarding males with Rett syndrome. One of the first things that popped up for them is that males who are diagnosed with Rett syndrome rarely live past infancy, which we know that that's absolutely not true. There are plenty of males with Rett syndrome who live past infancy. And I think with more understanding and awareness about Rett syndrome, they can live much, much longer than they have before, just as the females can. And that's because with more information, the more information we have, the better understanding we have about how the mutation affects individuals, the better we are prepared to help them and make sure that they are able to live a full life with the resources that we currently have to be able to control many, many symptoms that may be out there for them. Now, the first grant from this fund was awarded to our very own Dr. Banky, who, if you haven't heard, he works with the Rett Clinic at Children's Hospital in Aurora, Colorado. So we're excited about that. And this is definitely a much needed fund to help bring about more awareness and more information about how Rett syndrome specifically impacts males, because while there may be a lot of misinformation, going back to what Rick and Alyssa said in their article, there are plenty of males who live past infancy. There's just a lot of misinformation for males that need to be overcome, just as it was for females before. And this research will help provide a better perspective of that experience for males.
What's best for you? For you. What is best for you? For you.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. Normally in this section of an episode, we sit down with somebody who shares with us their story, their experiences, gives advice, all that sort of good stuff. But every once in a while, we have a topic that we just want to share with you. We don't want to share the time with anybody else.
That's right.
We just want to hear our own voices. Nobody else's, just our own. You're shaking your head.
I don't really like hearing my voice, so.
Oh, well, I guess that's just me. So today we wanted to share with you about equipment studs and duds in our humble opinions.
Yes.
So while we recognize that we are still very young in our Rett syndrome journey, we've had a lot of equipment, fortunately or unfortunately. I would say both.
Both, definitely both.
Yeah. And during that time, we've realized that there's some stuff that we simply can't live without and we absolutely need. And by we, I should say Zoe
Yes.
absolutely needs.
Well, I think because the equipment helps her and it helps us to help her.
Those with you, some of our favorites, what's going really well for us, the pros and cons of those favorites, as well as those not so favorites and what made them not so favorites. And the criteria for these items to be on this list is that it had to be something that we got specifically with Zoe's disability in mind, and it had to be for Zoe.
Yeah.
So not like for us, like respite,
Right.
get away from things,
Right.
Like for me, Sarah's getting me the new Harry Potter game.
This is news.
So that way it's not news.
It's news to me.
You've said it in your sleep multiple times that you're going to
whatever. I don't talk in my sleep.
That would be respite for me. Because it's hard caring for Zoe at times, but that doesn't count because
It's not on the list.
yeah, it doesn't count because it wasn't for Zoe. Anyways, we'll talk about that later.
We will.
But let's go ahead and begin with the duds. With the duds, when we're saying that they're not working out for us, it doesn't necessarily mean that the products are crap. They're not good products or anything like that. It just means that either A, it just wasn't for us. It wasn't for Zoe.
It just didn't work the way that we had expected it to work for us.
Absolutely. Or circumstances changed to where it just ended up falling out of favor.
It didn't fit the needs
anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's begin with the first one. And I think many families have gone through this, and that is the many, many cups and straws.
So many
cups and straws that we have tried using.
So many.
I feel like constantly I am seeing cups that I'm like, ooh, that one may work. Ooh, that one may work. But now I'm to a point where I begin to realize it has to have very specific characteristics in order for it to work for Zoe.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, which really limits the number of options. So some of the struggles that we've had with various cups, with straws, the opening is just too wide.
So like the diameter of the straw is too big.
Yeah, it's just too wide for her. And while she does great drinking from a straw, if it's too large of an opening, it's hard for her to get enough. What is it? Suction? Enough suction, yeah.
Enough suction, and it's because the diameter is bigger, it's harder for her to get her mouth wrapped around the straw.
Yeah.
And so if it's too big, it just comes out her mouth because she can't get a good seal.
Yeah. Yep. The liquid does.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So it has to be a smaller straw, which there's really not a lot of smaller silicone straws, which that is what we've figured out is that silicone needs to be that's what it needs to be, because anything
Yeah.
plastic, hard or soft, the soft one just doesn't withstand her mighty chomp. And the hard ones, I am concerned that they will tear up her mouth.
Yeah, because she does move a lot when she's eating and drinking.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So it's
Yep.
definitely a concern.
Yep, absolutely. Another part with straws, they absolutely have to have some sort of backflow valve or just valve in general
Yes.
within them. And the valve is very simple. It's just a little bit of silicone that's blocking the flow of the liquid, and it opens when you suck.
Yep.
It's very simple.
Stops the backwash.
Yes. That's the way that Zoe drinks. It's fascinating because it's not just a suck, it's also a blow. She pushes it back in to the cup. And so she's sucking it all up, and then and I don't even understand why she does that. It doesn't make sense why she would.
I don't know. I couldn't tell you.
Yeah. I have to watch her a little bit more next time that she's drinking, because I don't understand what the purpose for that would be. Anyways, there's a lot of things with Rett syndrome that have no purpose. maybe I need to stop asking some of those silly questions. So anyways, having some sort of valve barrier or whatnot that closes off any sort of, well, like a substantial amount of backwash
Yeah.
going into the cup.
Yeah.
And then also the straw has to be an appropriate length.
Yes.
We have some silicone straws that our younger boys have no problem with.
Yeah.
They don't have any issues at all, but Zoe absolutely not. And I think it goes back to this suck and blow thing, which
They're just too long.
like she cannot get enough.
It's like sustaining the
suction.
the suction. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just hard.
Yeah.
With the straw being that long.
Yep. So it's going to be an appropriate length straw for her as well. Is there anything else on straws? I think that really...
They need to be easy to clean. That's the other
Oh,
thing.
yes. On the back end for us, absolutely. Being easy to clean. Now, I think with what we've settled on, it's not the easiest to clean.
No.
But it's fine.
But it fits basically all the other criteria that we need.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So it's worth it.
Yep. With the cup itself, it needs to be able to be torn apart completely so we can clean it, which that's not too hard to find.
No.
Most toddler and young children cups, they tear apart into small
they're
enough
meant to
pieces.
be.
Yeah, to have a deep clean done on them, especially after milk has been left in them for
Gross.
a week. We don't have that problem in our home because our children really don't drink milk all that
they
often.
don't.
So, but we need to be able to clean them easy enough, and it also some sort of spill prevention.
Yeah.
So we do have one cup that I just wish the straw was better, but it's that frozen cup.
Yes. It's an anti-spill cup.
Yeah. So it has this really basic rubbery suction pad on the bottom of the cup that when you set it down, if Zoe is listening to music and she gets very excited and her arms go flying out and that specific cup is on a tray or a table, she can't easily knock it over.
Yeah.
So she does occasionally, but not as much as some other ones. But unfortunately, the straw with that cup, and you cannot replace that straw with a smaller one, it is just a little too large.
Yep.
Just a little too large for her. So what we continue to go back to are the Munchkin cups, which, do they have a specific model name? Do you know, Sarah?
I think it's just the weighted straw.
Yeah.
It's Munchkin brand, and it's their weighted straw cup.
Yeah.
I think is what it is.
Yeah. Which that is also really nice because, I mean, if you think about like just you go to McDonald's and you get a cup and one of those regular plastic straws and you drink out of it and you're starting to get to the bottom of your drink, as somebody who's able to control the entire situation, you adjust that straw to where it needs to be. And it's hard when you're trying to assist somebody else do it. It's not the easiest thing to do, to
No,
adjust
it's
that
not.
straw and get it in the right location, but then also maintain that straw in that same location while helping them drink from it.
And they're moving around. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's difficult.
Yeah, it's very difficult to do. So the Munchkin weighted cup, straw, whatever it is, it's great.
Yeah.
That's a really good one. And we see it all the time with everybody. So I'm sure there's plenty of people who are listening to this saying, yes, exactly. That's what we have as well. So the next dud that we have are the SMOs that, I mean, they were a year old when we had to give them up.
Yeah.
Right? They were fairly new.
They were.
You want to talk on those?
Sure. So Zoe got some SMOs, and SMOs are, so simply put, they're a foot and ankle brace. And they just go around the foot and ankle as opposed to an AFO, which goes up your leg. So it goes like mid-calf. And they started out pretty good for her. Initially, we got her SMOs because she was leaning on the outsides of her feet. She was like rolling them out and trying to like stand on them like that, which obviously is not good. So we got them to help with that. And they started out pretty good. And then Zoe started regressing a little bit with her walking. And she started having a lot more issues with her mobility. And because of the regression, she started to point her feet and keep them flexed. And that was pushing on the straps in front as well as rubbing the back of her heel on the SMOs. And it was creating hot spots. And they're painful. Like hot spots can be really painful. And if you don't remove whatever is causing it, they're just going to get worse. And so Zoe has on her left foot, I think it's her left foot.
Yes.
She's got a pretty, she had a pretty big red spot on her left ankle.
Mm-hmm.
It's just about better, I think, at this point.
Yeah, these hot spots take a lot longer to go away than you think.
Do. They're like really deep blisters is kind of what it basically is what they are.
Yeah, yeah.
So.
Yeah, and all of it has to do with the fact that, like Sarah said, Zoe, she's experienced a pretty severe regression over the past 6 months or so. And part of it is, her feet are constantly flexed and it's this pointed toe. And so it was rubbing her heel and her ankle were rubbing in spots that the SMO was not designed to be rubbing on.
Yeah.
And so, it was creating these horrible, painful, deep tissue blisters. And so it's not that the product itself is a crap product. Like we were saying, it's just, it didn't end up working the way that we were hoping it would.
I mean, initially it was working great.
Mm-hmm.
And then she started to lose her mobility and things changed and now they're not.
Yep. So right now we are waiting on a new pair of AFOs.
Yep.
And she has a pair that they're supposed to be worn mainly at night, right?
Yes.
That's what they were.
They're nighttime splints. Yeah.
But they do more or less the same thing. And so what we've been doing is supplementing with those during the day to be able to help combat this toe pointing and ankle rolling that she still continues to do. And hopefully with that and then the new AFOs, that will help her be able to stand
Yeah.
a bit more. And yeah, it's certainly not going to correct everything.
No.
Unfortunately, it is what it is, but at least we do have these devices to be able to help her out. So anyways, yeah, if you're looking to get SMOs, they may be a great option for you. However, if your child is flexing those toes, rolling ankles, anything like that, may not be a good idea. Maybe you want something a little more rigid that's going to keep their feet flat.
Yeah.
Essentially, that's what at least Zoe's AFOs will do. Is just essentially, it seems like it's a removable cast. You put
Kind
it
of.
on,
Yeah. Yeah.
or,
It is
or
kind
like
of
like a boot.
Yeah.
Like a boot that
Exactly.
you put on to stabilize your foot as an adult. Yeah. So hopefully that will all help. And our last one, number 3 for dads, is headphones. Now this one is rather odd because you wouldn't normally think about headphones,
Yeah.
for Rett syndrome and whatnot. But we tried, when was this? 2 years ago? We tried getting headphones, Bluetooth headphones for Zoe to be able to wear when we were going on a long road trip.
Yeah.
And the reason why we wanted her to have headphones is so she could listen to her own movie and even possibly music on this trip.
Yeah.
And she could do her own thing because she likes different things than her brothers do. Her brothers usually are in tandem with each other on what they want to watch on a road trip. And so we don't have to worry about them being upset with one another. They'll just kind of go along with it. But Zoe, not so much. She has very strong opinions about stuff. So we're like, hey, let's get a cheap pair of kids' Bluetooth headphones. And they were, over the ear headphones. So they would wrap all the way around. They would be comfortable for long periods of time. They had a good battery life.
They seemed like they'd be really good.
Yep, absolutely. What we did not take into account is how excited Zoe gets when she sees certain things or hears certain things, especially when it comes to media.
Yes.
And when she is in her car seat, she is bouncing literally side to side, wall to wall in that car seat. If it's something that she's really excited about, she is bouncing everywhere. Well, these big, bulky, over-the-head headphones stood no chance of remaining on her head.
None at all.
None. And so she bounced back and forth all over the place. And
it was a rough trip.
Oh, yeah. They just kept falling off. They just kept falling off. Now, Sarah did come up with a great idea, which was she took a pair of big fluffy socks and she wrapped them around the headphones. So that way, because the headphones, they do fold in half.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to kind of make it a little more comfortable so they could sit around the neck, and we would crank up the volume and have them plugged in.
So she basically had little speakers around her neck.
Yeah, exactly. And so we gave that a try, but that was also like rather bulky and awkward. And there was this wire dangling down and everything like that. So, was there another iteration before the final one? What we have right now? I think that was it. Okay.
No, that was it.
Well, so if I remember correctly, you took the kids on a road trip, right? And then when you got back, I was working. That's why I didn't go with you guys.
Yeah.
And you got back and you told me about these headphones you had put in her headrest.
Yes.
Okay. You tell about that, because I don't think I've even seen them within the headrest, so I don't even know exactly what they look like on the inside.
Oh, well, they're actually really cool. So I was trying to figure out something easier for Zoe, because it's once she's in her car seat and she's all strapped in, it's hard to get the headphones around her neck, the ones with the socks. And so I initially was just searching for like some sort of speaker that you could put next to the car seat so that she could listen that way. But the thing about our car is that you have to have an actual wire to plug in, or you have to have the manufacturer's headphones. So I needed something that would plug in and something that was essentially portable. That's really hard to find because now everything is Bluetooth. Yay, Bluetooth. It's lovely. It's terrible. I couldn't find anything until I started changing up my searching, and I found these headphones that you're supposed to use at night. They go under your pillow. Essentially what they are is really cheap. They're almost like really cheap headphones that have the wires that connect to each one, but without the headband part. So it's just the foam circles with wires coming out of them. And that's all they are. So what I did was I tucked it up inside the sides of her headrest so they'd be right by her ears, but not on her ears. And then I took the wire and I put it behind the padding of her car seat and ran it down the side so that she's not getting mixed up in any wires. And there's a little spot where the wire comes out that when it's not plugged in, it can sit just right behind her car seat. So it's out of the way if we're not using it, and it's easy to grab if we do want to use it. It's awesome. It's really awesome.
It is really nice. It's very simple. So it's much better than, those Bluetooth headphones, which, by the way, we do still have those Bluetooth
They're
receivers.
Nice.
No, the receivers.
Oh, the receivers, yeah.
Yeah, so like Sarah was saying, our car, you either have to have the manufacturer headphones or you have to plug in with an auxiliary cord. However, there are third-party Bluetooth transmitters, receivers. I'm not sure exactly what it would be, but you plug that into the auxiliary port so that you can have Bluetooth headphones. However, it's like,
It's kind of shoddy.
well, I think it mainly was the headphones that were shoddy that wasn't working out so great. I think it was that. Maybe I'm wrong, but like the whole process to getting them connected each time, because we take Zoe up to therapy that's an hour away each week. And it's nice to put something on for her to be able to enjoy. She doesn't mind driving around without something on, but oftentimes I'm sure she would enjoy not listening to the podcast that Sarah's listening to or to the book that I'm listening to if I'm driving her, whatever it may be. She gets to enjoy her own thing. And so, it's just literally plug in the auxiliary cable. There's no waiting for a connection and trying to fidget with it. Like if we're running behind, I don't have to say, well, we're not doing it this week, Zoe, because we're running behind and I don't have time to connect it. No, it's literally plug it in and go.
Yep.
Yeah. So if you're looking for an easy hack, that's something that you could do.
Yes.
It was a very impressive find, Sarah.
Thank you.
One of the favorites, I think, of your jerry rigging things.
Definitely.
Yeah. Some of the more practical ones. Some shelves, not so much. But that one, yes.
We're not going to go there.
Look, we all have studs and duds, right? Just like this.
Mm-hmm.
We all have them in our lives. And that's fine. We live and let learn.
Right. I'm going to go cry in a corner now.
All right. Well, now that we've shared the 3 duds, let's talk about the things that we are using still and we intend to use for a very, very long time. To begin with, beds. So we got our Sleep Safe Bed by George Haven series. Is that what it's called? The full name?
It's a Sleep Safe Bed by George is the brand.
Oh, gotcha. And then it's the Haven series.
And it's the Haven series.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes more sense. So we've had that for a long time now. I think it's 3 years at this point that we've had it.
Oh my gosh.
It's been a long time.
Yeah, it's been about 3 years.
And it is great.
So good.
It's exactly what we need to be able to take care of Zoe. If you don't know what it is, it's essentially a medical bed, a home medical bed that is intended to keep the individual safe and within the confines of that bed, so that way
It's kind of like a giant crib. It's a twin size crib.
yes,
I don't want to say that my 7-year-old sleeps in a crib, but
that's the best way to describe it, unfortunately.
essentially it's like a crib. It's got high sides that, she's...
One side rolls up and down.
Yep.
It has, in this particular one, it does have the electric movements with it as well. So the back can raise up and the legs can get propped up as well, which that has been nice on a number of occasions.
Yeah. When Zoe's sick.
When she's sick, it's really great to just prop her up slightly, make sure that, if she were to vomit in the middle of the night, it's not all on her. It would hopefully go down, which, I mean, not pleasant at all, but it is what it is.
Less chance of choking on it.
Yep.
With her sitting up.
Yep, absolutely. Propping her legs up slightly, to just promote some more better blood flow. Yeah. And if she's wearing those
nighttime splints.
Yeah, that helps as well, because it's not comfortable. If you've ever worn ski boots or snow boots before, it's not comfortable to sit on the ground with them with straight legs. Yeah. Because you are fully extended at that point and it's not comfortable. So same thing with these nighttime splints. They are not comfortable to have straight knees, straight legs, everything. You have to be able to bend them. And so being able to prop up her feet slightly, that's very nice too. And then also the fact that we're able to have so it's got holes for her CPAP hose to be able to come through. That's really nice. It's just, it's given us a lot of peace of mind.
Yeah. Because Zoe's ambulatory, so she can move on her own, but she does roll.
Yeah.
And she would roll straight out of a regular bed.
Yeah.
And there are times when she does get up on her knees.
Yeah.
They're getting less and less, but they're there.
Yeah. Also, currently, our 3 children, they are small enough that they're able to share one room. Mm-hmm. Her brothers would kill her.
The bed keeps her safe.
It keeps her safe
from her brothers.
Yeah. While it may appear like she is the exhibit, no. Her brothers are the exhibit. It is like the scuba diver in the Shark Tank. He's in that cage. And he's protected from the shark. Zoe is protected from the sharks.
Yep.
Thanks to that bed. They would gobble her up.
Well, initially we even had, so this particular bed, you can put a canopy over it. So it's completely enclosed.
Yeah.
And initially we did that partly because Zoe was standing. She was able to get up to standing sometimes.
Yeah.
But the other reason was I didn't want her brothers throwing things into her bed and hitting her.
Yes, which was a very real possibility. So I think we removed that about a year later, year and a half probably. We kept it on there for
we did. We kept it on there for quite a while. So, I mean, I think it's only been off for like a year maybe.
Yeah. So we did end up taking it off, but we had it on there when we needed it. And the rest of the bed we still use.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Now, that's not the only Zoe specific bed that we've purchased. And we've talked about the other bed that we purchased. And I think it was actually episode 3. I think it was episode 3 where we talked about our Safe Place bedding travel bed.
Yep.
And we purchased this one. This was after our diagnosis, pretty immediate after the diagnosis, I think. It was one of the first things that we purchased.
Oh, it was.
We were getting ready to go on a road trip, and we were trying to figure out a way to keep Zoe safe in her own little space so she couldn't hurt herself.
We'd been using pack and plays. to keep her safe, but
Yeah.
she's just getting too big.
She was getting too big. She was getting too big for it at that point. So we found Safe Place Bedding, and their travel bed is amazing. We still use it.
Yes.
And if you haven't checked it out, it's amazing because, number one, it's inflatable. So it acts similar to an air mattress. It does not inflate underneath. It only inflates on the sides. And that's what creates the structure that the individual is enclosed in. So it's almost like an inflatable tent.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's inflatable. It's got straps that are absolutely massive.
Yes.
And I'm fairly confident they could wrap around a California king.
Oh, I believe it.
And what these straps do is you feed them underneath the bed and you buckle them together. And that's what keeps the bed stable.
It
keeps
keeps it
grounded.
in place.
It keeps it in place. Yeah.
It keeps it from moving.
Yeah. So if the individual's sleeping in the travel bed, if they roll to one side and they continue to put their weight on one side, it's not going to just tumble
Off
and
the
tumble
mattress.
and tumble
Yeah.
until it's off the mattress. So it keeps it in place. It has mesh on all four sides. So it's in a triangle shape. So it's, like I said, like a tent, a pup dog, sort of tent. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. And so all four sides are mesh and they have zippers on them. And what's really nice about the zippers is there's actually a function to be able to clip them closed. So if you are concerned about the individual you're caring for being able to unzip it in the middle of the night and getting out, because I do know many individuals who may have autism or Down syndrome or anything like that, oftentimes they have weird sleep patterns and oftentimes they'll do weird things at night. And when you're in a non-familiar place, that can become dangerous.
Yep. Or
So-
even a familiar place, honestly.
Well, very
if you've
true.
got like a runner, yeah.
Yep. So this is a safe, easy way for you to quote unquote lock them in for the night. But it's easy to unclip and clip back on. So it's not like I need a code to get them out of bed in the morning. It's literally just a clip for it. And the only downside for us, which it's a unique situation for us, that Zoe has a CPAP. It didn't come with any sort of port like her Bed by George comes with to be able to feed hoses through.
Yeah.
And so Sarah was able to make one. What did you use for?
I used a really big curtain grommet.
That's what it was. Yeah. Yeah. And
My Jimmy riggin.
Jimmy Riggin?
My Jimmy riggin. I did it again.
Jimmy or Jerry?
Oh, is it Jerry?
Oh, they're brothers. Them Riggins brothers are at it again. So yes, Sarah, she went crazy on it and put 2 ports on either end, and it's great because now we're able to feed that hose in just like we do at home.
Yep.
So very easy to do. It did not damage the integrity of the mesh at either end. It still is just as strong. So it works out really well for us. And even if that wasn't a real option for us, or if you're looking at getting at and you don't feel comfortable doing something like that, you can feed the hose
through the zipper.
Yeah, you can feed the hose through the zipper, and it's not that big of a deal at all. It does pretty much the same thing. It's not as clean.
And if you need to close your zippers, that's going to be a problem.
Yeah. But it works well enough.
Yep.
That way. So anyways, those are the 2 beds that we're using. We're very happy with them, and we'll continue to use them for the foreseeable future. The next item that we have on our studs list is gloves. Now, when did Zoe get her first pair of gloves?
2 years ago.
Okay. And that original set was, I believe that was intended mainly for nighttime, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah.
So originally we got gloves with finger bands. I don't know. With finger sleeves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And basically the gloves, the purpose was to keep her hands open and fingers straight.
Yeah.
And she was supposed to wear them at night to do that because she needs her hands during the day. But here's the thing. At night, your hands automatically relax.
Yeah.
So she's not curling her hands into fists at night anyway.
Yeah.
So it didn't really do what we wanted it to do.
Exactly. And we began having conversations with Zoe's occupational therapist about how there was quite a bit of muscular deterioration in her right hand. I don't even know what the muscle would be called, but it's right below your thumb. And Zoe really loves to tuck her thumbs. Well, mainly her right thumb. It's always wanting to go into her palm.
Yes.
And because it's always wanting to go there, it's causing some deterioration. And that's no bueno. Any sort of deterioration, muscular deterioration, is not good. And so the OT recommended that we start using those gloves during the day to keep that thumb out. And Zoe would still be trying to tuck it down in. So she's still stretching it out and everything, but there's that resistance.
Exactly.
Which that in turn would hopefully help build that muscle back up again, which it was. It was. And then we went on a road trip and we lost them. And so now she has a new pair. But it's been amazing what these gloves do. Sarah and I were talking about the gloves in preparation for this, and I made a comment that I have noticed that some other Rett syndrome symptoms.
Oh, okay.
That it was the tongue twister. It was a legitimate tongue twister, not Sam being silly. So some of those Rett syndrome symptoms seem to have subsided. Oh my gosh, that was a lot of S's.
Yes, it was.
Now that could be completely circumstantial, but it to me has appeared like allowing Zoe to clap, tap, whatever you want to call it, using her hands, has calmed the clicking noises that she has previously made in her mouth, the teeth grinding. And what was the other thing? Was it just those two that we were talking about?
I think it was just those two.
Yeah. Now, it could be completely circumstantial that those have calmed down quite a bit. But I have wondered if because we are allowing her to stim in that way, and she's doing it in such a way that it's not harming herself, because the gloves protect her hands just in case she has very long nails and we haven't noticed it and it's cutting into her hands, or just that repetitive motion on her hands over and over again, that's going to wear down the skin and cause lesions on the skin. Yeah. We're just letting her kind of do her thing at this point. I think the last time I used an elbow splint was like 2 months ago. Yeah. It's been a long time that I've used one. And before that, it had to have been almost 3 or 4 months.
I will say I have used them. I have used her elbow splint a couple of times recently.
And you're with her more than I am.
Yeah. But the reason that I use them, though, is at this point. So initially we were using them to stop the hand motions, like Sam was saying. But it's good for helping her be able to use one arm versus the other.
True.
So if you put an elbow splint on one arm, she doesn't have to think about keeping that arm under control, and she can focus on controlling her just one arm at a time.
Yeah.
So it is still good for that. But I agree. The gloves definitely have helped reduce other things.
Yeah, protected her hands and prevented some other stuff from happening. So yeah, absolutely. So we have not really used the elbow splints for protecting her hands since we started using the gloves, which was a completely unintended consequence of using the gloves. But it's been great. It's been really great.
Yeah.
So, was there anything else on gloves? I don't think there was.
No, I think that was it.
Yeah. So finally, number 3 on studs, toothbrush.
Yeah.
This is also kind of a weird one.
It is a little bit.
Yeah. So we lucked out on the dentist that Zoe goes to see. When she was finishing up with her first appointment, they gave us a specialty toothbrush.
Yeah.
And it's this 3-sided toothbrush that is meant to make brushing easier.
Yeah. It cuts down on the time that you have to spend brushing because it brushes more surfaces at the same time.
So if you think of a traditional toothbrush, you have that single brush that the bristles are all pointed down in the same direction. So you brush the top of the tooth and the side and then the other side, and then you move around to the rest of your mouth, right?
Yep.
Well, this specific toothbrush, it has three brushes. I was going to say 3 sets. It's not 3 sets.
Not 3
it's just,
sets.
but it's 3 individual brushing areas.
Angles?
Yeah. Essentially, you have your main one, just like you do on a regular toothbrush. And then out the sides, both sides, it has these little wings.
Yeah.
And the wings have another brush on each side. And you can actually manipulate those wings. So there's some sort of metal that's inside that allows you to articulate it. And you're able to adjust it so it's the appropriate size. And then when you start brushing, you are brushing all 3 sides of the teeth at the same time.
Yep.
So yeah, it cuts down on the amount of time you are getting more. Zoe right now, it is getting a little bit harder to brush her teeth because she's wanting to chew on the toothbrush.
She has good days and bad days.
She does. She does. And so it still takes a decent amount of time to brush her teeth.
Yeah.
But it is much easier than what we were having to do before.
We don't have to fight for as long.
No, it is much quicker. And so, yeah, it is so great if you're able to speak with your dentist about that, or even getting them online. They would be very reasonably priced because, it's a toothbrush with just added bristles on the side. It's nothing crazy. I had never seen them before. I'd never heard of it before.
Neither
and we
had
go
I.
to this dentist, which is not a specialty dentist. This is just your average run-of-the-mill dentistry. They pulled this thing out and I was like, what the crap? Why don't we just use this all the time? Why
doesn't everybody have a toothbrush like this?
Yeah, this just makes sense. We live in the age of the internet. We got things to do. We got TikToks to watch. We can't be wasting time, 2 minutes, morning and night, to brush our teeth. We got to be quicker than that. So
Yes, Michael Scott.
Yep. So that concludes our list of studs. Obviously, this list does not include everything that we have.
Not
There
even
is
close.
quite a bit more that we have, but these were some that we felt were the most unique.
Yeah.
That we thought would be the most interesting, and there'd be things that would stick out that most people wouldn't be thinking about. And so if you've got some other ideas of what you see as studs or duds in your life for equipment with your individual who has Rett syndrome, definitely send it our way. You can send it to our email, prettyhappypod@gmail.com, or you can head over to our website, prettyhappy.place, and you can send us a message over there. We would love to hear from you on what some of your favorite studs and duds when it comes to ability equipment. I really enjoyed putting together that list. It was nice to just kind of think about all the stuff we've had to use.
Just kind of go through.
Yeah, take a little inventory of what our house is filled with right now. We didn't even discuss some of the biggest equipment that we have right now in the home. So, it was quite a bit. Well, Sarah, it is time for Can't Leave It.
Can't leave it.
What can you not leave?
I recently have been on a bread making kick.
Mm-hmm.
I've been making lots of bread.
Mm-hmm.
And there's one recipe that I really, really like. It's not great sandwich bread though,
Mm-hmm.
but I really like it. It makes a really good bread.
Very tasty.
Very tasty. Very soft, very tasty. Not good like sandwich making bread though. So I've been trying to find a sandwich making bread.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I found one that uses all white flour or all purpose flour.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to try and find one that uses like whole wheat flour. Because I'm not the biggest fan of white bread. I'd rather have some like texture and taste to my bread. So I'd rather have a wheat bread. I haven't found it yet. I tried the other day and I just made dense bricks. So I threw them away. We didn't eat them.
That's what happened to those.
That's what happened to those. I didn't tell you because I was kind of a little bit embarrassed. So now I'm telling everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what happened to those.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to try a different recipe though. Because, okay, so here's the thing. The bricks that I made, that recipe is for all-purpose flour, not wheat flour.
Yeah.
And there is definitely a huge difference when you're working with wheat flour versus all-purpose flour.
Uh-huh.
So instead of trying to figure out how to change that recipe, I thought to myself, well, you could just look up a recipe for wheat
Mm-hmm.
bread instead of trying to make something that somebody has already made. Just find the thing that already exists.
Mm-hmm.
So this week, I will be trying out whole wheat bread recipes.
Well, good luck.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Not that you eat any of it anyway. It's
Nope.
just me and the kids.
Because you guys scarf it down so fast.
Well, okay, that's true. It's good bread.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, what's your can't leave it?
Slippers.
Slippers.
Mm-hmm. I've noticed that when I wear slippers, I feel more adult. Feel more grown up. And, yeah. So I've been wearing my slippers more recently. I'm not wearing
Have
them
you
right now.
been needing to feel more adult
No.
and grown up?
No, I put them on one day because my tootsies were cold.
Okay.
And I began walking around the house and I don't know.
This is what posh people do.
No, I thought to myself, oh, this is what it feels like to be a man. That's what I thought. It makes no sense, but that's where my brain went. I was like, oh, cool. Real men wear slippers.
They take care of their toesies.
Yeah, exactly. So I've been wearing slippers more often lately. I don't know.
That's pretty awesome.
And with that, thank you so much for joining us for this episode. Be sure to subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcast so that you are notified when we publish episodes, which is every other Monday morning.
And please leave us a rating on iTunes.
Leave us a message or a question on the Anchor app, and you could become part of the show.
Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Pretty Happy Pod, where we share episode clips, news and updates, and photos of our adorable daughter.
If you would like to be interviewed on the show, reach out to us on any of our social media accounts, or you can send us an email at prettyhappypod@gmail.com. For more information about Rett syndrome, visit our website,